Hi, my name's Thete and another Warhammer 40k discussion this time. So where I'd left it off with the new 9th edition rules and of course points values is I've been looking at a few armies, but I always bite off more than I can chew with Warhammer. Death Guard traditionally are my favourite 40k army, so when I sort of return to it, they'd be the one I'd focus on, and then sort of Necron second. Leaning far more towards the Death Guard at the moment because an awful lot of people are going to be playing Necrons, and I really hate Civil Wars. So if I can get one army painted up, which I have done now, it would be Death Guard over the Necrons. They will come. They will come. So where I'd left it was with the 2,000 point army I'd created for 8th edition, which of course had to be chopped. And what I was sort of explaining was, the problem is you could look at this and you could just chop some things out of it and fine, and you'd get yourself to your 2,000 points. But then I'd worry, but am I ripping the heart out of an army? With some armies, it's so finely balanced that, you know, just taking some things out of it, the whole army may not work anymore. Fortunately, I think you may disagree, that I have come up with something that will work and was based on the previous army. It is actually just straight up removing some things. So my 8th edition list was effectively, it was a number of detachments, and but you could fit this, well, actually you couldn't fit it in one detachment because there's 4 HQ choices here, but that has gone down to 3. So the HQ choices I had were Demon Prince as general, Typhus, Malignant Plaguecaster, and Lord of Contagion. Very excited to take a Lord of Contagion after the Psychic Awakening new rules that allow them to take a stratagem, which gives them the Chaos Lord ability of reroll ones to hit on nearby units. It was rather annoying, I thought, that they never had that, and still don't have it as standard. But there it is, at least they've got the option to take it now. In fact, when I was looking at the 9th edition list, I'm potentially spending an awful lot of command points off the bat to boost things up. I don't know whether that would be a good idea or a bad idea. But anyway, so the army that I've sort of gone for now, I have to sort of find what it is. Where are we? There it is. What I've done is I've chopped off the Malignant Plaguecaster in terms of HQ choice. For my troop choices, I had 2 units of 20 Poxwalkers and 1 unit of 7 Plague Marines. Now that has remained, and that has remained exactly as is. I did have a thought with the Poxwalkers, with blast rolls. You know, is there going to be a lot of blast weapons, and having a unit of 20 Poxwalkers means that they'd be guaranteed full shots. No rolling for the number of shots, it's just going to be full on. Whereas if I took units of 10, then there would be some rolling. There'd be a minimum of 3, of course, but there would be some rolling to determine how many shots they can do. And I've just thought to myself, do you know what the hell? Just for now, just leave it as it is. Leave it at 2 units of 20. We can always fine tune there. I did think of hedging my bets and saying a unit of 20 and 2 units of 10. I'm just going to leave it as it is. The Plague Marines there as well. In terms of other units, then it was like, in terms of the heavy support, 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, the Radio Dreadnought, and a Hellbrute. 1 Plague Burst Crawler has gone. Everything else is still the same. And then I also had 7 Blight Lord Terminators. They've gone down. It's now down to 6. I'm disappointed in this because it is no longer the number of Nurgle. But then I thought to myself, wherever I dump the Terminators down, I'm going to dump the Lord of Contagion as well. So we'll sort of pretend he is one of the 7. Even though I know it's not really true. But I'm going to pretend that it is. And also a Termite Assault Drill to, you know, transport the Plague Marines. And Foul Blight Spawn. And that is it. So the army, when I sort of chopped that out and I looked at it, I thought, well, the actual general shape of the army is still the same, and it can still do the same jobs. I've lost a Malignant Plaguecaster. I don't have as much to do in the Psychic phase. But I've still got Typhus, who can manifest 2 powers, and a Demon Prince who can manifest 1. You know, I've still got all the same units. Basically, in terms of units, the Malignant Plaguecaster has gone and a Plague Burst Crawler has gone, and that's it. that's all I've actually lost. I've gone down to 6 Blight Lord Terminators. The general shape of the army being roughly the same, and can do roughly the same things, it's all very well. But will it be any good in 9th edition? Because 9th edition didn't just bring points increases, so you don't get as much bang for your buck. It also brought a different way of playing the game with an emphasis. 40k in 8th edition had a very strong emphasis, of course, on getting the victory points, but the way you got those was a little different. So then what I thought is, okay, can I actually manage a situation? So what I did, I picked a strike force scenario that would include 6 objectives. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it seems to be 4. But one with 6 objectives, this is Scorched Earth. And I imagined, how might I deploy? Now, obviously, particularly for choosing your secondaries, you'll obviously have to wait and see what your opponent's got, what their army's like, how the deployment goes, what the battlefield is, what the scenario is. But I sort of looked at this and I imagined my army being in 3 distinct blocks. So the Poxwalkers blocks with Typhus, of course, to buff them. One of the strengths of being of Nurgle is they can sort of stick around. So I thought, well, they, could potentially sort of move forward and try and maybe even hold 2 objectives if they're not too far apart from each other. Don't spread out too thin, but still. In reality, Poxwalkers are going to be whittled down at some point. They only replenish their numbers, depending on what options I take from Psychic Awakening, but realistically for what I'm planning, they're only going to replace their numbers if they kill something in the fight phase. I'm not hopeful they're going to do very much there. So they will be there just to capture some objectives for a certain number of turns. Then a heavier assault type block of the Doradio Dreadnought, Hellbrute and Plagueburst Crawler with the Demon Prince to give them those re-rolls of 1 with their shooting. But also when things close, him and the Hellbrute can go charging in and do some damage as well, and give the Dreadnought and the Plagueburst Crawler a bit of cover potentially. Then in reserve, of course, I've got effectively 5 units. The Termite Assault Drill will carry the Plague Marines and the Foul Blightspawn, and then the Terminators and the Lord of Contagion can just teleport themselves in. And sort of way I imagined this, so let's say you were looking at a potential deployment that would be something similar to this. And then you can sort of imagine in turn 1 just sort of moving forward, trying to consolidate where you can. Obviously depends on what your opponent is able to do. But the aim being to try and hold on to 3 objectives there, at least prevent your opponent getting hold more, even if you can't hold them. Because you think about what secondaries to take, and you may take some of the psychic ones. Again, you'd sort of see to yourself, if my opponent doesn't have, if they can't do much about my psychic phase, let's say I'm against Necrons, then maybe I will take some of the ones that you get for psychic. But then I was thinking, quite a lot of people would move away from Line Breaker. They're not keen on having to have units wholly in their opponent's deployment zone. The way I would think with this army, it's not going to be able to advance very, very quickly, of course. It's there to sort of move slowly and stay there. So trying to get things in all 4 quarters for like general area domination is not going to be too easy. But because I can teleport a load of stuff anywhere, if the deployment zones are such that you have got, let's say, at least 2 objectives either on or in those deployment zones, as you do for Scorched Earth, then what I'll be able to do is actually pump those in somewhere. And again, I don't know exactly how my opponent is going to cover across those. But if I throw everything on one of those objectives or near them and get into combat, I should be able to get, I think, I should be able to get Line Break at some point. Just pick whichever is the weakest point to attack in. Because for Line Breaker, I just need to be in my opponent's, entirely within my opponent's deployment zone. Now, obviously, the way I've shown it here is the Lord of Contagion and Blight Lord Terminators are not in that deployment zone. This is more sort of, if I get the option to do this and surround that objective, obviously, my opponent will know that it's worth a lot of victory points to me to have units entirely within their deployment zone. They'll try and shift them. So they may all have to be in there. It'd just be easier to hold that objective. And you sort of look to a position for the primaries as well of then being able to try and hold more as well. focusing on the ones I would already have to begin with and not let my opponent push me off those. I don't think I'll really push my opponent off too many objectives, maybe one with the ones that can teleport in. And I sort of looked at it, so I looked at that one. I think I quite like Line Breaker. There's another one you can also take as well if you're going to be in your opponent's objective zone as well. And I've forgotten what it was called. In fact, let's just have a little look, because you know, if you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, yes, it will mean my opponent will also be highly motivated to get rid of them. So with Line, just to remind, Line Breaker, 4 victory points at the end of your turn if 2 or more units from your army, excluding aircraft, I don't have any of that, are wholly within your opponent's deployment zone. So I have potentially 5 units zoning where I could dump them in turn 2. Can't get anything in turn 1 for it, of course, but in turn 2. Now, with it being 4 victory points, you max out in 4 turns. So if in turn 2, 3, 4 and 5, I can maintain at least 2 of those units remaining in that deployment zone, staying alive long enough to do so, then I max out on that one. And as I say, if I wouldn't necessarily want to do that unless they could, I expect them to capture an objective as well, but in this particular case, they hopefully could do that. And then there's Teleport Homer. So score 4 victory points each time a unit from your army successfully completes the following action. So 1 infantry unit from your army can start to perform this action at the end of your movement phase if it is wholly within your opponent's deployment zone. Now, out of those 5 units I can zap in them, 4 of them are infantry. This action is completed at the end of your next command phase. So whoever you begin it with, you need them to still be alive. They've got to survive your opponent's next turn as well. So there is that side of it. But generally speaking, you know, if you're confident about that, and again, you know, you pick these when you've seen your opponent's army anyway. But I would be minded to think it could be quite good at Line Breaker and Teleport Homer. And for each of those, you get 4 victory points for those as well. Again, you can max out in 4 turns. And if you can achieve one of them each turn, you can probably achieve the other. I say probably. Line Breaker is easier because if your opponent kills off 1 unit, as long as you've always got 2 in there, you are getting your points for Line Breaker. Whereas with the Teleport Homer, you've got to make sure you choose the unit that is going to survive, imagining that your opponent will bring all their guns to bear on it, because for every 4 points they deny you, they gain 4 points themselves. It's almost the equivalent of doing that. So there it is. That is how it is. In terms of exactly how it is, in terms of like the stratagems I'll be spending. So I had thought of a few. I've not gone into details on that because that could change. But it is 2,000 points on the button. It's exactly 2,000 points the way I've got everything equipped. Not... Well, I think it's okay. I think it's okay. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It may unfortunately be some time before I actually get to use it. We will just have to see. Not least of which, partly because obviously we've still got some COVID restrictions making gaming tricky. But also, I'd also have to wait for an opponent who feels confident playing 2,000 points in 9th edition to come along as well. But there it is. As I say, let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for further content. And until next time, I will see you later.